Greetings and welcome. I am Velyn Hawkins, your host, and you're in the zone, the Biz Info Zone, where the savvy social entrepreneur gets the news and information to help them grow business bigger, grow it easier and faster, and even, just finding the ways to make your life easier, your business easier, reach more people, and get your message out there. We're here to help you to express your purpose, plan your next moves, and take your business into the land of prosperity. Okay, so I can tell that I am playing somewhere. It's probably me, so let me see. Yes, it is. There we go. All right. So today we are here with my guest Manolis, and we are playing in the strategy category of business mastery. And I was reading Manolis's bio, and I was very intrigued by the fact that he and his family moved here and got started, and the whole entrepreneurial background, and how he grew up in this entrepreneurial frame, yet went to school and learned accounting and learned business and business systems, and even paid his dues out there with some of the big ones, the big boys that will cost you some dues. And now he's playing in the realm of equipping social entrepreneurs and equipping entrepreneurs through something that probably all of us now have heard about, but not too many of us really understand, and understand how we can plug into the systems and platforms that are out there that in particular will work for you based on what it is that you want to do. So let me welcome our guest today, Manolis. Hey there, how are you?
Doing well, and thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on your show, and excited to see a few familiar faces on as well. So yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Cool, great. Well, let me just start off by saying, beyond what I just talked about, give us a little bit of background. Who's Manolis, and why are you in this space of wanting to help entrepreneurs with raising capital for either business or things that they can use their business to help others with?
Great. Well, you did give an amazing introduction, so thank you for that. The one thing I'll add is this: through being raised within the restaurant business with my family, I did have the entrepreneurial flair. But you don't necessarily have that. You don't necessarily need to have that background to have that flair. And in fact, the generation I'm a part of, the millennial generation, I'm 31 years old. The millennial generation seems to have that flair incredibly, because they were raised in a fashion that said, "Hey, son or daughter, times are good right now. You could be anything you want to be." And so the millennial generation has that entrepreneurial flair. And through my experiences at Deloitte, the Hartford Insurance Company, real estate and restaurant management, each time I ever met that demographic, all my colleagues and all my friends, we all have that need to create something. And the reason why I'm really excited about the space that I'm in now, crowdfunding, is that I believe that that's the missing link. It's the missing link for entrepreneurs to actually have a way to make their great ideas come to life through the funding mechanism of crowdfunding. So, great introduction. I just wanted to add that on top of it.
Well, that's great, because that really gets our conversation started. One of the things that I'm asked a lot about is, what is crowdfunding? Give me just, the down and dirty, quick definition. What is crowdfunding? I think I know, but I don't know if I know. What's your definition of crowdfunding?
Sure. So take the concept of passing around the basket at church, where a group of people contribute to an individual with a need. Put that concept online, apply it to things other than charities, such as small business, services, music, art, film, and you have crowdfunding. So it's basically turning social capital, social relationships into actual capital via the internet.
Cool. And who do you find of late that is waking up to the fact that there may be possibilities for them using crowdfunding for their business?
So what I find is there's a lot of entrepreneurs who currently might be in a corporate job. They've always wanted to venture out into the entrepreneurial space, and unfortunately, and I'm sorry for the background noise, someone is outside weed whacking apparently. Sorry about that. But someone who's in the corporate environment who wants the entrepreneurial space, and they said, I've always wanted to start a company, but I haven't. So they might have certain resources available for them to do it part-time. So I think a part-time entrepreneur is a great person who is waking up to the crowdfunding process. And I'll make sure I close my microphone when I'm not speaking.
Now, actually, I don't hear your background noise, so it may be at a level that your mic is not picking it up, so you're good. But that's an interesting concept. The people who are in the corporate arena who are preparing to leave and looking at this as a viable option for them. Give us a little more about, that's one sector, and that's typically a sector that I see as well with those who are interested in starting new businesses. They're looking at the people that I generally see are looking at maybe pulling from savings or tapping into that 401k to pull out enough of a loan to really fund their getting started, and we call that bootstrapping, which a lot of my clients have done, in fact, and now they're in that 2 to 3 to 5 years of being in business. And mind you, doing okay, struggling sometimes, maybe sometimes not. But now they're at a place where they're thinking, it's got to be easier. There's got to be a better way for me to raise capital outside of, mortgaging my house, putting a second mortgage on my house, or giving away my firstborn. So what do you see in the way of these individuals when they come to you to raise capital? What stages might they be in? What issues are you seeing that they come with?
Sure. So one of the major items here that is very important to know is that it's good to start part-time. I mean, with our company, Reality Crowd TV, we actually had a bit of a we were unique because I knew that I was going to leave my job 6 months before I left, and so in that 6 months I was saving some money to have as a cushion, because I reached the point where I was very unhappy. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing every single day, and in that process of the 6 month build-up period, 2 months into it, on October 23rd, 2013, the rules about crowdfunding came out for equity and debt investments. So as soon as I saw that, I knew about crowdfunding previously, but really 3 months into my 6 month journey to leave corporate America in one way or another, crowdfunding came into the picture, and then I said, this is what I've been waiting for. This is exactly what I've been waiting for, so that I can actually leave my job and go. So Christmas Eve 2013 was my last day at work at the Hartford Insurance Company. It was a great Christmas present, even though I did love, the Hartford. It's a great company, but I left at that time, and so in that scenario, I don't actually recommend that for most entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs should keep their job, work part-time until they reach enough income to support themselves full-time. And if an entrepreneur, let's say, is devoting 8 hours a week, and total amount they need to have a recurring revenue that would make them comfortable is $3,000 a month. If they're only working 8 hours a week and they're making about $1,000 extra a month, then that probably could be a good time to leave, because if they extrapolate that over their full work schedule, that 1,000 will turn into, you know, times 4. So you'll get to 3,200. So if you can earn at least 1,000 a month working 8 hours a week to get that extra 1,000 a month, if you feel comfortable, you have a little bit of a nest egg, 3 to 6 months of savings. If you upgrade that to 40 hours a week, then you're going to make about 4 times what you made in that 8 hours. So that's what I recommend for entrepreneurs, and that's kind of what I see is they're testing the water part-time, and they're getting comfortable to just jump ship if they reach that certain income threshold.
Yeah, that's actually a great place to start. Um, I know that even with the program that you've got set up now, you're basically encouraging people to take that 6 months time frame in order to go through the positioning and planning and then implementing this strategy so that the funding plan can actually receive the kind of success that it potentially can. Um, do me a favor and talk about some of the funding end goals that people have. I mean, is it just operating capital? Is it, funding for, a book project? And, what are you seeing that people are doing this for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways that people are utilizing this technology, and it really is unique to each individual's project. I mean, some books, you mentioned books. To me, an author doesn't really need much money to write a book. They need money to publish a book. But to actually go ahead and write a book, no one should be going to say, I need money to write a book, when you could write a book at any time. You just take a piece of paper and start writing. I mean, at least that's my opinion. Of course, if you need to go to like a different country and be under investigative, be an investigator, maybe that's different. But in general, people use crowdfunding as a marketing mechanism to publicize an existing book that they wrote. So that could be one option that people use. If you are a technology manufacturer, you have a prototype, but you don't have enough money to really get the big operation run, which is creating more of the actual product. Because in order to create something in a factory, you have to do a bulk order. So a lot of people, they finish a prototype through the technology of 3D printing per se, create a couple prototypes through a 3D printing facility, and then they'll go market it using crowdfunding. And their goal is, with this money, we'll be able to actually do our first production run of this technology. Some of them are saying, with the money, we'll hire more people. So they're adding the element of, contribute, and now you're creating a million jobs. So that's another great venue. And even service companies. I actually believe, there was an article that I wrote back about a few months ago. It was on bloggingforjobs.com, and the title was, "Is crowdfunding the cure for unemployment?" And the reason why I wrote that article, or contributed to it rather, was that people who are unemployed have marketable skills. They may not be hired by the traditional company anymore, whatever the reason, but imagine if there was a website that allowed for entrepreneurs to crowdfund their skills, create a video which is so unique to the crowdfunding process. They show you who they are, tell the story, almost like crowdfunding mixed with Elance. That would be an interesting site for entrepreneurs who are currently unemployed, as a new way to market their services of what they could do for somebody. So it's really, it's up to your imagination, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I actually get a lot of inquiries as to what can I do with this? How can this help me do that? And I mentioned the book, and I'm glad that you said when it relates to the publishing, yes, unless there's extenuating circumstances like you have to go somewhere and cull data, or spend the time and collect data, cause and collect the data. The same thing goes for events. I know that one of my clients was doing a major live summit type of event, and she was looking at, okay, how can I come up with capital in order to do this? And of course, one of the great ways is by using sponsorships. And while sponsorships are great and they represent immediate funding of it, bringing in immediate funds, she was asking about crowdfunding. And I'm going to reserve telling you what my response was, but in light of what I just outlined, why don't you give us your response on that if someone came to you with that kind of a scenario?
So a very interesting thought, and yes, I think crowdfunding to host an event is actually a very good idea because number one, it's a good marketing tool for the event, and number two, it essentially tells you if there's demand for the event or not. If it's not successful, then you're not going to have the event. In other words, it'll tell you if you should even host the event or not, if you can sell any tickets to it, if you can sell sponsorship to it. That right there is a good indication if the event is of high demand or not. So I think it's a great tool for two reasons: marketing and to tell you if you should even go through the process of planning it.
I do. I am a big proponent of the theory: create it or plan it, sell it, and then create it. Because in your planning it, you've got something structured, you've got the framework for it. And selling it could be getting your sponsorships or doing a crowdfunding, and the interest level that you get in it is a great indicator as to whether or not it's going to be successful. If it is, go through with it, create it, do it, and imagine the highest level of results. If it's not, I'm a huge proponent of going back to the drawing board. What do we need to look at? What can we do better? How often do you find that the ideas that you see, you end up helping people to kind of go back to the drawing board on?
Yes, I mean, in fact, a lot of entrepreneurs use crowdfunding for validation of an idea, but I believe validation should happen well before you ever crowdfund as well. Because if you're relying on crowdfunding to validate the idea, there is expenses involved with crowdfunding. So why would you go through the expenses without knowing any indication if your idea is something people would want or if it's just a crazy idea that only you care about? And so to me, I actually do not take clients if I understand they didn't validate the idea at all. And I will kind of use my lens, not to be the one who's the judge and jury, because a certain industry, I don't know all industries, so I can't necessarily say that ideas are good or not. I could say that, I'm not your target customer, so show me evidence that you've gone out and validated the idea before you launched with your target customer, because I can care less about this. From a perspective of a customer, I care about your success, but I don't care as a customer. So when entrepreneurs come to me and ask me these type of questions, I say, have you validated this with a certain amount of people so that you know for a fact that this is a needed product or service? And so, very good point, Lynn. All entrepreneurs need to validate the idea before they ever crowdfund.
Well, so
excuse me, it's just Manolis. Could I just add to that? I think what you're saying is really important, because I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes you get the concept, or you've even spoken with them where they have sort of head in the sky, big ideas, but the concept of executing, or what are the objectives to get me from point A to point B, to even think about a validation, because they're thinking about launch, and there's so many steps between what you were just talking about and launch. And I do think that the crowdfunding industry has a responsibility to people that, for entrepreneurs coming to them, to say that, I think this is great. I think these are your next steps, or I don't think you're quite ready yet, and I think it needs to be validated. And these are the steps that you need to take to have that validation. And I would love to see that when you're done with that, and then we can talk about next steps. Because I think that this is so new to some people. It's not new to us, but it's new to some people, and they think that they can, come in, pay a fee or a membership or whatever, and they're going to have a video. They're going to be up on Kickstarter the next day, and there are so many steps in between. And so I really like what you were saying, is that what has been done to test the market to know if your product is actually something that is going to be viable, because we want this to be a success. And so I think that's a really important point.
Absolutely, and Lynn, I'd like to introduce you to Michael Coyle. He is the founder of BioScientia Group, and he's also a member of the community that we're both a part of. So, yeah, I just want to introduce you to Michael Coyle, and thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask for that. So thank you, Michael. That was great feedback. And now that we're talking about the whole test segment here, what are some of the ways that people can test whether or not their product or their idea is viable? I mean, what have you seen to be some of the most successful testing mechanisms?
Sure, and I can answer that, and then Michael, you can share your experiences too on that.
Sure.
But from my perspective, a case in point in a new thing that we're testing out, we're implementing a virtual incubator and crowdfunding syndicate, an online community. And so the cost of this to test was a free 14-day trial. It was my time to kind of get it out there and find good people like the two of you to kind of see how it looks in there. And because it's an internet-based incubator, the test for me was looking at the analytics of the website traffic before and after the incubator was implemented. And when I combine the website traffic from my old website plus the incubator, within 14 days my website traffic doubled. It was an amazing discovery, because the way the incubator works, the sharing mechanisms are so robust that it invites a lot of guests to come in. So the way you test is find little to no cost alternatives and do a very short test, 2-week trial where it doesn't cost you anything, and then measure your results. Another mechanism is surveys. So if you actually have a particular product or service, you can use SurveyMonkey, which again is free, and you can actually set up a bunch of different questions about your product or service and send it out to people who are non-biased. You might want to find new people who are not your friends or not your family. Find people who don't know you at all, who are in your target market, to say, would you buy this? And if you would buy it, at what price? And what features would you want on top of the basic features? All these different mechanisms to validate an idea are available for free. It takes your time and your understanding to utilize the free tools of social media to find your target market and actually market the survey component to them. So, Michael, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I think it's great, and I think the incubator that we have talked about and you're mentioning now is a great place for people to get that kind of feedback, because more often they're not going to know the other people around, and so there's going to be this honesty about where the product is and what it's available, where I think it might be available in the marketplace. I think that I would be remiss if I didn't talk about. I think people think about crowdfunding as a potential piece of magic that gets them from I've got this great idea to that first angel or that micro VC, which is becoming in vogue now. And I think that nothing takes the place of doing incredible due diligence and just looking at your business plan. And I think that we really need to, if we're talking with people coming into a crowdfunding situation, that they actually have a business plan that's been well vetted, and particularly is looking at the competitive landscape and where their product or their service fits in, and if it's a potentially saturated market, how do they differentiate? Because that's really, really important, because I think that's really the litmus test for whether or not that product should launch. And you know, I've seen multiple threads across multiple you know, social media outlets, and I think someone was saying if you have $1 million idea, go get a $100 million idea, or go get a different idea. Well, I don't subscribe to that. I think your idea can be whatever you want it to be, as long as it's well placed, you know, in your sector for a product that you think can, you know, not only help you make a living, but make people's lives easier, whether it's a service or a product or whatever. So I go back to the business plan. I go back to the due diligence, and notice what you said about you've got to put time in, you've got to put energy. You can't just throw something up virtually and expect it to be a success if you haven't, you know, done the put in the elbow grease to make it work.
Thank you. I love that, because I too am a proponent of the business plan. I think that going through that exercise, you actually do the first stage of the validation that we talked about. You actually end up asking your questions, you know, who's my target audience? Am I
think
reaching them?
that's
What
absolutely right.
questions are they asking? What problems
Yeah.
are they having? How can I satisfy what it is that they're looking for with what it is that my big idea is all about? And you know, one of the things that I noticed too is that there are a lot of entrepreneurs who come into this space. You know, typically the work that entrepreneurs do, they really do have a passion for. They really feel the value behind it, and who's to say that it's not there? But the thing that I've found is that when they attempt to do crowdfunding and it is unsuccessful for whatever reason, they tend to think that it's a mirror reflecting back to them about what it is that their ideas about, what it is that they want to do. And they actually shift so many things, they end up doing nothing. So how do you encourage the person or redirect the person who's made the attempt and not been successful this time, but you know they've got something good and you can help them to get to the next level? How do you manage that one?
So very good point here, and here's what I'm going to say to people who don't have a mentor. Learn the hard way. Go out there and just do something, right? A lot of people, from what I see, is they have a great idea, they say they have an idea, they say, I want to do this, I want that, but they never answer the question of how they're going to deliver that solution. And the how is learned by action. The how is testing different strategies, going out there and finding a way to deliver whatever the solution they're trying to deliver is. If they want to create a tech product, but they don't have a tech background, then provide the solution manually. Manually deliver whatever solution you're trying to deliver so that you at least get the bare bones understanding of how the process would work if it was automated. So for me, the idea that people will give you money just because you have a good idea is a fake one. Maybe in the past, maybe a business plan was enough. I don't think a business plan is enough anymore. There needs to be traction in the business, and that's having to go ahead, put some pedals to the metal, use whatever resources you have right now. And in the internet world, there's so many free resources that there's really no excuse to not make a little bit of traction on whatever your idea is. So that is my biggest thing: is your idea might be great, but it's not enough for funding. You need to find a way to get some traction without any money.
Michael, would you have anything to add to that?
Yes, thank you. I think that that's true. I think the business plan should be the first step, like we talked about a moment ago. You know, asking those questions. If you know you're sitting down and you're putting your concept video together and you're ready to do your crowdfunding launch and you're having those questions asked to you in that moment, I think you're a bit late to the party on that one. I think so. The business plan happens earlier. I think that having traction, being able to bootstrap, to have that sort of that tangible evidence that there is value in the marketplace for the product or the service, that goes a long way, because ultimately what we're trying to accomplish with any kind of funding, any kind of raising a seed round, is mitigating risk. And for the people who are watching or looking or reading, or even though you may be looking to have so many hits on your campaign and raise a certain amount of money, you're really looking past your computer, if you allow that metaphor, because you're really looking at who the real investor is going to be for the expansion round, or for capital that may be necessary to bring on people to help you do the 30 jobs that you happen to be doing right now as an entrepreneur or working out of a bedroom, for example. So I think it's really important to do a lot of the work up front in terms of the business plan. Talk with a lot of people, as Manolis said. Look at what are different ways of traction? What is traction? What does that look like? And then really have a cogent idea for who your initial investors are, but who you think your real investors are.
That's great. I love that feedback, because most people think that it's a 1, 2, 3 type of thing. 1, I've got my idea. 2, I've got it all written up. 3, I can do this, versus it being many more multiple stages of the crowdfunding process. And I've done a couple of crowdfunding campaigns. I've helped a few people do theirs. I've actually been in the grants world for 30 some odd years. I mean, seeing it come from the basement of the Central Library and these books that were 12 and 13 inches thick, to now, not only can you do the research online, but you can actually apply online. Tell us, Manolis, a little bit about your platform, how people find out if their idea is ready, and then how they possibly engage to confirm that they're ready for stage 1 of the stage 3 process.
So, very good question. And right now our current incubator platform is an alpha, which is really a very, very bare bones version of its future self. We upgraded to a newer platform. It's not out yet, so that's going to be what we call the beta. And what I'm envisioning, and this is the beauty of this incubator, not only is it a virtual ecosystem, but it's going to be crowdsourced. And so the beta version, I specifically could have chosen many features to have on it, but I took the platform that's the most bare bones, and I'm going to be polling all the members to say, what features do you want to have in your incubator, in your ecosystem? Because this is a community we're building. It's not what I think people need. I feel I have a good idea of what some of those things are, but I won't say that I know everything. And I want the community to speak and say, I would like this to be a feature in your incubator. I would like that to be a feature. But the way that I envision it now, which is subject to change if other feedback is different, is that there will be different sections of the incubator that you go based on how far along you are on the entrepreneurial journey. So there will be a section that says, is your idea valid? And in that community, there'll be content that will be specifically catered to how do you validate the idea. And it could even have a community that crowdsources what their expectations are of the product and the feedback that you can receive. So to me, having that piece in this virtual incubator, even though my personal expertise is in the crowdfunding space, I believe that any startup and entrepreneur would benefit, especially the early stage ones, and that's why we also have to include other entrepreneurial pieces to this incubator, because we're after early stage startups, and I just believe that it's always going to be an option for them to do crowdfunding, but in reality, we're helping them be entrepreneurs. It's not just about raising funding. It's about learning skills like social media, public relations, business development, forming strategic partnerships. So those different areas will be available for people. And crowdfunding, just like funding for VCs or angels is usually the last step, crowdfunding is going to be the last step here as well, because there's so many things you have to do 3 to 6 months before you ever launch. And so our community is going to be much more than crowdfunding. But to answer your question, there will be a specific section for them to get feedback on if their idea is a good idea and what type of features their idea should have as well. So that's what I envision. But of course, it's so vague that the crowdsourced the crowdsourced voting that'll happen about what the people want will help us clarify that as well.
Well, so my next question actually relates to this idea validation time frame. So one of the things that I have experienced is, and rightfully so, people tend to be very protective of their ideas. You know, what's going to happen if I tell you my idea? Are you going to steal it? You know, CNDAs and, you know, all of these things have come about for idea protection and protection of intellectual property. So when you're talking about being able to enter the platform to get into even just the idea validation stage, how are you letting people know that there's protective mechanisms there? The ecosystem will take care of them versus, you know, our paranoia, people trying to take from you.
So there is a difference, in a great question, because entrepreneurs have this all the time. There is a difference between sharing an idea and getting it validated and sharing the secret sauce of the idea of how you will deliver it. So in my opinion, entrepreneurs will need to be educated on the difference. An idea is like, there's a dime a dozen of those. What really matters is the execution. So when you're validating an idea, you're not validating the execution. You're validating the need in the marketplace that what you're offering, the product or service, is in demand. So to me, there's nothing to be stolen by trying to assess market demand. And that's what I believe validation is. Now, if you're out there also, you know, saying exactly how you're going to do it with something that's not patented and someone can get a patent on it, if you're actually revealing the how, then I would recommend you not reveal the how, unless, of course, you have all these legal frameworks in place, like you said, the NDAs and the other elements that could protect you. But the ecosystem is there really to assess demand. If you need help assessing the how, and it's something proprietary, then you need to protect yourself in that manner. But here's also something else too. If you never share your idea for the worry that someone's going to patent it because you can't afford to get a patent on it right now, if you never share your idea, then someone else is going to actually figure it out on their own. And you'll just be left behind just with an idea and no action. So I always say, even though attorneys will not like this, I say one of the best protections is be the first to market, be the first to act, and don't let a patent, you know, stop you if you can't afford it. Just be the first to act and just do something. And I don't know how you feel about that, Michael. It's not the best legal advice, and I'm not an attorney, but as an entrepreneur, I'd rather be first than never at all.
Well, I certainly I want to say this. You know, if you're going to jump into a pool, jump head first, not feet first. So it sort of goes with that. You know, being first to market. The world that I have been in is more around medical technology and biotechnology, wearables, etc. And so a lot of times that intellectual property is in place, or maybe it's even a 510K where it's a if you're looking at sort of a FDA clearance and marketing clearance and so forth. So it's a little bit more sensitive, and I think in some realms than others. In general, I think that if you're bold and you are strategic, I think that will serve you well. I think that if you come to the table with intellectual property, I think that it inherently increases your value. Of course, I think we'd all agree with that. But I think that, you know, coming into the incubator and the ecosystem there, and I think you really hit it on the head, Manolis, is that we don't have to talk about the hows and the whys. We just need to talk about conceptually, does this really fit? Is there a market for this? And if so, what does that market segment look like? And you're right. We can teach people how to have that conversation where, here's the elevator speech, here's the long elevator speech, and here's what I'm submitting to the attorney. And I think that those are three very different conversations. And if you think about crowdfunding versus what comes after that, if it's a successful project, and we all want that to be a successful project, um, angels and micro VCs and VCs typically will invest in IP and the management team. And so if through that process they're getting traction and they're getting validation, and what comes out of that is a provisional patent, we've really helped them increase, ultimately would become shareholder value. And that's really, I think, something that the incubator and the ecosystem can do for people who aren't quite sure of the system just yet.
Absolutely, and just to add one other thing onto that, different people at different stages will have different resources, and so you're right. The companies that have done this before will always have technology patented because they've done it before. But if it's an entrepreneur who's just getting into the game, who doesn't have much experience being an entrepreneur, these are things that those type of entrepreneurs tell themselves to just never even try. And so the piece that I'm trying to get them out of is, just act. You might not have something that's patentable anyways. An idea itself is not necessarily patentable because everyone has ideas. So don't talk yourself out of pressing on an idea that isn't even patentable in the first place. The fear of someone taking it, chances are someone already has your idea. I already know.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. You're going to open a restaurant, who they've patented the form of the bricks on the floor. You're not going to open the restaurant. No, that's absolutely. It's a very, very good point. I agree.
Yeah, but I agree. I agree with you too, though. Most companies who actually have something patentable, then they should. But also, if they do have something patentable, then they probably have the resources to do it anyways if they've tested it and it worked. So.
Well, cool. I think you've actually hit the nail on the head with the fact that, we're talking about differences in people, we're talking about differences in stages of preparedness, we're talking about, the corporate versus large corporation, small corporation, and then you've got the solopreneur, even the serial entrepreneur. You're talking about all of these different variables playing in, which means that you really need to look at each situation, each circumstance, and each opportunity on its own merit. And I like the fact that the ecosystem is being set up so that you can pull from those who are involved in order to really structure it to meet all of those differences, or at least the differences that the people involved in can actually see because they're either in it or have experienced it. And that's one of the best ways to build a platform like what you're talking about, and to know that the first stage is pretty much set. And the caliber of people that are a part of your incubator at this point in time has really impressed me. One of the things that also kind of caught my attention, I'm fairly new to the group, but this caught my attention and the responses to it. You asked the question, you're crowdfunding, what are your goals? And I know for me, it actually made me sit back in my chair and actually go there, to the constructive side of my thinking to say, remember the goals that you had when you first started this process. And that's one thing that I think people lose sight of as well. As you're doing this crowdfunding process, you're going through a lot of the stages that we talked about, and you tend to compartmentalize so much that the goal gets put over here and you're still moving forward. And asking that question, I think, which is one of the reasons I love the business plan so much, is because it makes you focus on the goal, keeping that prize in front of you. And typically when you're doing crowdfunding, it really has to be something that's bigger than just you. Your capital is being raised so that you can do something that's bigger than just bringing in additional revenue. And that goal, that prize, that thing has to be kept as the dangling carrot, because it's going to do a lot of things. And I want you to speak to this real quickly too, as I'm looking at the time. The motivation factor. You know, this is not an easy process. It's not hard, but because of the number of things that are involved, you know, people's level of motivation to reach their goal kind of wanes. How do you help people to stay motivated, you know, top of the key kind of thing? How do you do that?
Well, I don't know about the two of you, but just chatting with you guys live like this is motivating to me. And so I think there will be peer mentorship involved, where we all just kind of come together in a situation like this, where it could be, we could all be having a drink virtually together, right? And just talk about our struggles, kind of like a virtual happy hour. And, you know, we could have a virtual happy hour. So
I second that motion, and I will host the first one.
Count me in.
So look to your Google calendars.
All right.
Well, you know what? And for the founding members, we could ship like a bottle of wine to each member. Well, I mean, actually, that would cost a lot of money, but we'll figure it out. We could do things like that to just have people support each other.
You could crowdfund it to make sure that we had the resources available.
So the first one, here's my suggestion. The first one, we all just show up with a bottle. Make it BYOB and be there.
Sounds perfect, but I think that's how we can get people to share their stories and have people feel supported, because ultimately, even though, like, you know, it's a virtual environment, I feel like this interaction is going to be the backbone of what makes it a success. And so that's one major value add here. The other major value add too is, you know, I was on an interview right before this, and I told Devin, he asked me, for people who want to change the world, what piece of advice would you give them? And so I liked that question, and so I told him, Devin, if this opportunity of crowdfunding came to me 5 years ago, I wouldn't be ready for it. And so the advice that I would give an entrepreneur is, before you can change the world, you have to change yourself. You have to really look within, understand how you operate, understand the things that were said perhaps when you were younger or during your youth that maybe made you think that the world was against you. You need to spend some time to figure out the truth of how life is. And you have to find a way to see things empowering. And so, you know, 5 years ago, I left my job at Deloitte and I started my entrepreneurial journey. And I went back and forth to corporate America a few times in those 5 years. But I've begun to get very clear on what I want, how I want to make change in the world, and I eliminated a lot of the fears that hold most people back. I wouldn't say I'm fearless, but I have less fear than I used to 5 years ago. And that right there is what I'd like to instill in our community, is that, you know, if you're just starting out, then start out on your own startup, which is you. You should be your own startup. You know, treat yourself like you're about to transform the world within, and then once you do that, then you could transform the world without. Because if you can't convince yourself that you can do something, then there's no way you're going to convince anyone else that you can pull something off either. So that's what I would say there.
I love it. Thank you. That was a great segue to my wrapping things up too, because it's really key that if you have any misalignment within you, it's going to show up. And it's going to show up and be a cog in the wheel. And you don't want that. And Michael, you've been such a major contributor today. Do you answer that question for us from your perspective? What would you say?
I think that's absolutely true. I was trying to figure out how to send Manolis a comment on just nailed it, because it's that's exactly it. I mean, if the confidence doesn't come from within, and you surround yourself with people who are going to give you that honest feedback, but also keep having you be at the front of the line to keep asking those hard questions, that's critical. It's critical for anything. I mean, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. Whatever you're doing in your life, whatever relationships you have, and so I think that having that ability to really just get up every day and say, you know what, I can do this, and I want to do this. I think those are two very important things, and I think that the incubator that Manolis has been talking about, and that ecosystem, I think will be that support group for people who, we're going to stumble, we're going to, skin our knees, but continually moving forward is most important. And so I think that's really important. We talk about traction in the business, traction with the product, how is it going to place and so forth, but really it starts with you. Or with whomever, the entrepreneur. So, yeah, I think that's a very important point.
I agree, and I want to thank you for being a part of the Biz Info Zone show today. My goal is, again, to bring this kind of information to our audience of entrepreneurs, to let them know that not only is this something that they can do, there's support for getting it done. There's communities, there's environments that can help to fuel what it is that you have a desire to do. And making a difference in the world, I find there are more small businesses who want to do that than anything else. And I often talk about the history of the social enterprise. And it was, back in the day, long ago in history, my grandson says back in the 1980s. But back then, who were the social enterprises but the local community small businesses that hurting people could call on to help to ease their pain, whether it be in money or Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas presents under the Christmas tree. It was the entrepreneur who knew that there was something bigger to themselves than just doing their business. It was about others. It was others focused, others centric, purpose driven, and it all came from the heart. And I see a lot of heart in what both of you guys are doing. Manolis, in what it is that you are bringing to the world in this platform. I'm looking forward to helping to fuel it with the entrepreneurs that can really benefit from having that kind of an ecosystem and community for support. And I'm just really grateful for the two of you being here today.
Thank you as well, and it's a pleasure. Great to actually, we talked on the phone, we communicated in the incubator, and now we're seeing each other face to face. So, pleasure. Thank you so much.
And likewise, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you, and just really enjoying the process. And I think just to touch on something you said earlier, the quality of the people that I'm having interactions with through this forum is really it's outstanding. It's remarkable, and I didn't know what to expect, but I typically will go into something like that with the understanding of expect nothing, so that whatever the experience is, it is. And I can tell you that it has certainly been exceeded, and it's just been wonderful interacting with Manolis and some of the people in the forum, and certainly meeting you. And I just really enjoyed it very much, and thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you both for being here today, for helping me to help our audience of savvy social entrepreneurs. My name is V. Lynn Hawkins, and we've been here chatting with Manolis. Say your last name for me, please.
Spinarolakis.
Spinarolakis, the founder of Reality Crowd TV and realitycrowdtv.com. And we've had our guest, Michael, on joining us today. Michael, tell us again your full name and your business name?
My name is Michael Coyle, and I'm the founder of BioScientia Group. BioScientia Group is a consulting company that works with biotech companies, medical tech companies, wearables, looking at next generation and current generation products and how they place in the marketplace.
Well, thank you again for pinging in here with us, and I know that our audience is going to enjoy this segment. I'll be broadcasting it again and sharing it out again to the world. I'd love it if you do the same. I know, Manolis, you're great with doing that. I'm following your lead. And I want to say to our audience, thank you for joining us. If you're in the audience live or whether you are watching this replay, it has been my true honor and pleasure to bring to you today's show. Join us again next week when we've got something amazing on schedule. And every week going out, and in a couple of weeks, we're actually going to do a book and a business segment. We're going to do an entire show about a book in your business, how you can use your book to grow your business and how your book can fuel everything that you do that moves your business forward. So thanks again for joining us. I'm V. Lynn Hawkins. I'm your host. You're in the zone, the Biz Info Zone. And have a great week, everyone. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.